Joe Madison goes after the lies that almost ended our democracy and still could. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. I have been laying out for the past hour my argument that while it's important and in fact vital to be focusing on the people who stormed the Capitol, these people who committed treason and attempted revolution, basically. Not just sedition, but treason against the United States of America, that most of them would not be there, many of them would not be there were it not for them being whipped up over 4 years by big lies from Donald Trump and continuing lies from at least a dozen Republican members of the Senate and over 140 members, Republican members of the House of Representatives, and an entire right-wing media echo chamber and infrastructure that has convinced many of these people that the election was in fact stolen from them. And there's a variety of things that are animating them. Although the changing of America, the election of a black vice president for the first time, clearly is a big piece of that. I wanted to get one of the people whose insights and thoughts into these kinds of matters that have to do with the nature and fate and future of America I most respect on the program to discuss with me for this half hour, the first half hour of this program today. Joe Madison, the Black Eagle. His program is on SiriusXM on the Urban View channel 126 from 6 to 10 a.m. every morning. If you don't listen to Joe, he's really worth checking out. That's the 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. He's also a civil and human rights activist. JoeMadison.com is his website. His Twitter handle is MadisonSiriusXM. And Joe, welcome back to the program. It's great talking with you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And everything you said is absolutely right. I've been listening. You are right on target. There's nothing you have said, nothing that you've said that is a lie. Like many of the folks in our profession who have been spreading often the big and little lies.
It's really grim, Joe, and I can my listeners have been, in fact, I keep putting out the number for Congress, 202-224-3121. Call your elected representatives and express your opinion, whether it's for impeachment or whatever it may be. They're weighing in loudly. What are your listeners saying? What's the sense of Joe Madison Show? What's going on?
Well, let me just start with today. We had Congressman Benny Thompson, who came on because as chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, he is now contemplating, the entire committee is, whether or not the people, 24 and more, who have been arrested for the siege of the Capitol, whether they should be on a no-fly list. I come to find out they are. Many of them are. But then he said that individuals such as Senator Hawley of Missouri, Senator Cruz of Texas, and Congresswoman Boebert, if in fact they are found culpable or guilty of inciting this riot that took place, that in fact, can you imagine that these members of Congress could also be on the no-fly list? Now, that would be quite a bit of news, and that there are no, when it comes to the no-fly list, there are no exceptions to that policy. The other thing that he announced on the show this morning was that the Congressional Black Caucus is holding a hearing this week to look into the actions or inactions of the Capitol Hill Police and other law enforcement agencies, and how they handled these protesters, these rioters, compared to, and the preparation compared to the way they prepared, quote unquote, for the Black Lives Matter protests back in June. And they also think that there were some inside assistance on the part of these law enforcement officials up on Capitol Hill. And I have to bring up something because this is our business, Tom, and it has been all the years we've known each other, is that I wish that the younger journalists that I listen to, you listen to, we watch on TV, I wish that they would do their homework and quit saying, oh, this never happened to us. This never happened before. I saw some of these cable news shows where the reporters were attacked, and they feared for their lives, and they said we've never seen this happen. When in reality, people, please do your homework. This is exactly what happened, particularly during the civil rights movement. My goodness, reporters were attacked in southern states when they tried to cover the various trials. For example, Little Rock, Arkansas, the Little Rock Nine. There are documentary films of reporters being attacked, photographers being attacked. He's no longer with us, Simeon Booker, who was the outstanding journalist for Ebony Magazine, Johnson publication. He told me once, and it's also written in his memoirs, that he had to carry a Bible instead of a reporter's notebook, Tom, to pretend to be a minister, or the mob would in fact attack him. So that's what we've been talking about. But I've also, more to your point, Tom, I've also pointed out the fact that people in our industry, I am not letting right-wing talk show personalities, professionals, their management, the owners of their station off the hook. I am absolutely not going to do it. They perpetrated the lies. And we've been on panels with them. I mean, people need to understand. We've been on panels with these people where they have argued us. They accepted what Donald Trump has done. And now what we're seeing is not just what he's done as president, but now we're seeing the character of the man. We are clearly seeing the character of the man, and we talked about his character, and they accepted it. So I've said this, and it's become a quote on the show. They fed the beast, and this beast attacked them. And don't argue. I hear the music, but don't argue about demonstrators tearing down a CVS when these folks tore down the People's House.
And welcome back, Joe. We've lost our SiriusXM listeners, but we still are on the air with our nonprofit stations and on TV, on Free Speech TV. I'm curious. I recall Jim Clyburn talking about how they knew where he was and they were coming for him. And when I heard, and I don't recall if I heard that on your program or if I heard it someplace else, and the thought that came to my mind is that, these people are planning a lynching. What do you know about this, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was. Jim Clyburn was on our show, and he repeated it, I think, on other shows later on that morning or that day. But he pointed this out, that if you go to, I think it's the Rayburn building he's in, or his name is on the plaque, but they weren't in the office building. They were not in the congressional office building. They were in the Capitol. He has, as a whip, a majority whip, he has a special office. I've been in that office. Let me tell you, it is around the corner, down the stairs, up the stairs, and around another corner. You cannot find that office if you're on your own. You have to be told where it is, and in many cases, to be honest, you have to be escorted to that office. And by the way, that goes for the same thing with Nancy Pelosi. I've been in her office. He is convinced that this was probably inside that someone he believes with the Capitol Hill police probably instructed the folks how to get there, or maybe even directed the people there. Now, I don't want to suggest that all members of the Capitol Hill police were involved in this, but there's no question about it. You saw it, you've talked about it. They were taking selfies. They removed the barriers. I had a retired General Honore on the show because, again, you remember him in New Orleans from Katrina's disaster. And he said when he was a 3-star general, his job was to coordinate the law enforcement officials. And it's just not the Capitol Hill police. It's a group of law enforcement officers. And one of the things he said, Joe, I couldn't get my cigarette lighter past a metal detector. But you mentioned about a lynching. You heard people say they would kill Mike Pence, and you saw them actually had a makeshift scalpel. Was that right? With a noose. I mean, this is we saw it with our own. And then you had the zip tie guy that they're now looking for. With all of these zip ties, so what were they going to do?
And you can find Joe Madison every day on SiriusXM, channel 126 from 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, on SiriusXM. Joe, we were talking about the noose that was hung up outside the Capitol building on that scaffolding, about the fact that they tracked down Jim Clyburn's office, which is not even marked and really, really hard to find. That it looks like there was inside help, or at least people who knew what was going on. That there were components of this invasion that were organized, well planned, serious, and then probably around them was just a bunch of people who were true believers who've been believing Trump and believing Hawley and believing Cruz. And how do we separate these folks out? And what are your thoughts? And again, what are you hearing on your show about how we need to solve this problem? It seems to me that until the majority of Republicans acknowledge that the election was actually real and fair, nothing's going to deal with the immediate crisis here. What do you think?
Well, Tom, I think the one way you deal with, particularly the internal situation with law enforcement, is that you hold congressional hearings. As I pointed out, the Congressional Black Caucus is planning, I believe, Congressman Benny Thompson said sometime this week, they're going to hold hearings and bring in witnesses and people that can testify to what happened, who did what. And I think the Congress acts swiftly. And that is, if you find that there were people who were liable for inciting or culpable individuals that were not doing their duty as law enforcement officials, you don't hesitate. You get rid of them. You fire them. And to be quite candid, I think that the people have to pay the price. And I've also pointed this out. I don't know how your audience feels about this, but if there is someone you recognize and you're an employer, and you recognize someone who is part of that mob, I think you fire them immediately and don't let them hide behind the so-called First Amendment. I mean, you get rid of them immediately. I think that if the Air Force veteran, the woman who was killed initially, no, she should not get a military funeral. No, she should not be buried in a military cemetery. I think we just have to get serious about this. I think if you own a radio station, if you are a program director, you are a manager, and you got anybody on your airwaves that are anyhow trying to justify the inciting of insurrection, I think quite candidly, they shouldn't be on the air. It's not about about free speech, because I know damn well if I incited a riot and or the beating of a police officer, quite honestly, I would be called into a program director's office or a manager's office and probably at minimum maybe suspended, but I'd be fired. If I were an advertiser, there's no way that I would continue to support any media outlet, because these outlets have profited from lies and disinformation. And Tom, you know, no one uses the English language better than you do. There's a difference between disinformation and misinformation. And as we approach Dr. King's official birthday celebration, I always draw attention to one of his most profound quotes. And that was, he said that the two most dangerous things on the planet, the two most dangerous things on the planet are sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. And that is exactly what we have been dealing with. And we've been on these airways telling people this for years. It's got to stop, and people have got to be real about it.
I'm with you. Joe Madison. And Joe, you and I have been on the air for decades, actually. You've been on for even longer than I have, and I've been on for 18 years here. The Joe Madison Show. Joe, if you've never listened to Joe Madison Show, check it out. JoeMadison.com, Madison SiriusXM on Twitter. Joe, thanks so much.